Hello, everyone, and thanks so much for joining our monthly Represent Us intro call to the pro-democracy movement. We have had folks trickling in over the last few minutes. We've got some great icebreakers in the chat, and we'll be revisiting them in just a moment. But let's get things off the road here. All right, hello, my name is Ben Levinson. I am the national organizer here at Represent Us, which means I support people from all over the United States, just like we have on this call today. We've got folks in Alaska and Florida, Maine, California, all the corners of the United States, Hawaii, even Hawaii, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Texas, right? We're all over the United States because, hey, democracy is a national issue. Corruption's a national issue. And no one is really safe from it. Neither party, both parties are wrapped in all of this in pretty much every region of the United States. This is a massive problem we're dealing with, and it takes a national solution. So that's me. You can reach out to me at ben@represent.us, or come join us on our Slack and continue the party, continue hanging out with us, right? This is just the beginning. This is just our first Zoom call all together. But this is a movement. This is a new community that you are kind of have found yourself a part of here. And we would love to have you join us on our Slack platform. This is basically a chat website that allows you to communicate with folks like me, other leaders from around the country. All right, today's agenda. Before I do that, I do want to just throw that. Actually, we'll throw the Slack link in there later. All right, today's agenda, folks. I am so excited to go through a great slideshow with you. First, we're going to go through the problem, right? This is going to be the saddest part of the call, but we got to talk about it, right? Because that's what we're up against here in the United States of America in 2022. But then we got to talk about how to solve it, right? And let me tell you, we do have a way to solve it. We know how to get it done. And we're going to talk about that and go through all of the ways that we can turn this ship around. We're then going to go through the theory of change because, hey, even if you have great solutions, but you can't implement them, then they don't do you any good, right? So we actually need to talk about how we're going to implement this massive solution and how we're going to win campaigns all over the country. And then we're going to talk about how you can get involved, which is potentially the most important part of this entire call. This entire call is really meant to get you a good overview of everything going on in the movement so that you can have a better understanding of how you can make an impact and where you best fit in to fighting for our democracy, fighting against corruption, fighting for the people. All right, let's look at a few of those icebreakers before we dive into the agenda. Just going to go really quick here since we've got a lot of folks on the call. We definitely can't get to everyone, but I encourage you, hop into the chat. Scroll up. You'll see a lot of really inspiring messages here from your fellow Americans. I'm going to read one from Leah. Leah, she, her from San Antonio. That's great. Awesome. I don't know if Jenna's on the call, but we've got a great statewide leader in Texas that I want to connect you with, Leah. Longtime fan of Lawrence Lessig. Okay, Lawrence is one of our main guys. One of our most influential political minds. He introduced me to this, and then I ran into this call somewhere, which was amazing. Okay, fantastic, Leia. I'm so glad that you found us. Yes, this is the way to support Lessig's ideas. This is his movement. This is his brainchild in a lot of ways. We've got Miguel Soto calling from Adelanto. And I'm joining this call because I would like to know more about Represent Us. I am running for Adelanto City Council. And my number one priority is the Adelanto Anti-Corruption Act, which was inspired by the American. Absolutely, 100%. And actually, our supporters might have been involved in actually getting that passed in Adelanto. So very cool, Miguel. Great to have you on board here. We've got Anna from Florida, and she wants to eliminate government corruption. So do we, Anna. Yes. Hey, we got Stephen Brose, who ran a Represent Us booth in Boulder at a festival back in 2014. Awesome. There's some great things happening in Colorado these days, Stephen, so I'm excited to get you back up to speed there. Nice. Betsy found us on Instagram. I love that. A great place to find us. Let's see. So I see someone who wrote republic, and yes, we are a democratic republic, right? And when we say democracy, we're talking about electing our representatives, right? So we use democracy and republic very interchangeably because really it's both. It's a democratic republic, right? We don't authoritarian, our representatives aren't authoritarians, right? They have to be elected by the people, which is where democracy comes in. Okay, great. Well, that is a fantastic kickoff here, folks. If you have more messages to send in there, please do. But let's dig into the meat of things here, and we'll have other opportunities to participate on the call a little bit later on. All right. So first of all, welcome to Represent Us. As I mentioned before, we are America's leading right-left pro-democracy organization and anti-corruption movement. We're building a grassroots energy all across the United States, from high school students to history teachers, retired military veterans joining us for stuff like Count Every Hero, former politicians, computer engineers, bartenders, mechanics, nurses, college professors, and so many more. Represent Us is full of members just like you who care about our democracy and are taking a stand to fix it. A lot of us are here on this call tonight because we are sick and tired of a government that doesn't represent us. And I don't blame you. American politics is pretty messed up right now. We have a ring of influence around our elected officials that includes gerrymandering, dependence on big donors, dark money, lobbyist gifts, the revolving door, and more. In order to see just how much this ring of influence has impacted our system, we are going to take a look at a 2014 Princeton University study that measured over 1,700 public opinion polls over a 20-year period to see how public opinion correlated to actual bills being passed in Congress, right? The laws, the legislation that we desperately need. The study measured public support for an idea. It also measured the chance for an idea to actually become law. What the researchers found was extremely alarming, right? When they did this study, they found that no matter how popular or unpopular a law was, that there is exactly a 30% chance that an idea will become a law, whether it is the least popular idea or the most popular idea, right? And so you can picture on this line any of the pieces of legislation, the policies, the improvements that we need to make. They're all on this line. All of the bad ideas are on this line too. Right? We are in a place where we are actually have statistically non-significant impact upon public policy, right? We, as in we the people, right? The citizens of the United States. In the past 5 years, the US has fallen below the threshold of a full democracy and is no longer considered one, according to the World Democracy Index. Something that is extremely alarming, as we used to be. And many of us still think of the US as a beacon of democracy, a light for the world to look up to, right? That is no longer. We have fallen below the threshold. What's most worrying here, folks, is that buying influence in our government is legal. Take a look at this slide, representing the views of the richest people in this country. Their opinions seem to be taken very seriously. And that means that corruption is legal. From constant partisan gridlock to political apathy, we are witnessing a total system failure. But how can this be possible? Right? Like I just mentioned, right? Many of us grew up thinking of the United States as a role model for the rest of the world when it came to our government and the way we did things. Well, let's start with the obvious, bribery. Between 2013 and 2018, the 200 most politically active companies in the US spent $5.8 billion influencing our government with lobbying and campaign contributions. Those same companies, right, the same ones that are putting all of that money into our government, got $4.4 trillion in taxpayer support with subsidies and other types of financial assistance, earning a return of 750 times their investment. Now, I'm no economist, and I've never run a business, but that certainly sounds like a good investment to me, right? $5.8 billion in, you're getting 4.4 trillion out. At the cost of winning elections explodes as that cost goes up and up, right? Politicians of both political parties become even more dependent on the tiny slice of the population who can bankroll those campaigns. Candidates have to raise roughly $45,000 every single day to keep up. And just 0.05% of Americans donate more than $10,000 in any election. So it's perfectly clear who candidates will turn to first and who they're indebted to when they win. But it's not just about the money, right? That's really just where things begin. Things get even trickier when politicians can ensure re-election through manipulating voting districts through a process known as gerrymandering. Politicians have been so successful at carving out voting blocks that 86% of House seats are uncompetitive. That pushes all the competition into the primaries, which attract predominantly partisan voters and lead to more and more extreme legislators. Those are the folks making the laws within the states. So whoever wins the primary is guaranteed a seat. And no wonder why we seem so divided, right? Where our system basically incentivizes the most extreme candidates being elected on either side. Speaking of that division, in the US Congress, it's really, really, really bad. And tensions are increasing throughout the nation, threatening the safety of our elections and creating the possibility for violence if we don't act soon. Take a look at this. In 1953, both parties were able to work together, passing all of these bills. Each line that you see on your screen represents another piece of legislation that was passed in cooperation between the Democrats and Republicans. And we had a great member of this call earlier say he wants to get back to unity and respect for politics. In 1953, passing a bipartisan bill was seen as a patriotic act. It was met with great honor, and it was a massive accomplishment. Now that culture has gone by the wayside, and it happened slowly, but by 2011, bipartisanship had deteriorated so much that it basically puts us at where we're at today. Very, very little bipartisan bills being passed from year to year. Right? So you take all of this together. You take the money, the gerrymandering, the gridlock, the division, right? And it's no wonder why only 4% of Americans have a great deal of confidence in Congress. Now, that is one of the most striking statistics that we have. You take all of this, right? And you get what we had last year, which is a really, really tough federal campaign on voting rights, right? And this is kind of the latest example of our corrupt system and our ineffective government, right? Just the past year, right, we failed to pass the Freedom to Vote Act. Before 2018, voting rights was notoriously a bipartisan issue, with bipartisan cooperation as recently as 2004 under George W. Bush. Now, this is a grave sign and an indication that we need a different strategy to assure that citizens in all 50 states have the right to representation upheld to the fullest extent. So like I mentioned, this is a national issue. It requires a national response. But folks, we're not going to be able to get it through Congress, right? We got to pave a new path, right, to improving our democracy and turning this country around. Okay, so let's take a little breather here and do a little recap, right? Average American, near zero impact. We are not influencing public policy as we should, right? That is the definition of we the people, right? We the people should influence our laws. Nearly every issue we face is caught in the grip of corruption, right? Everything's on that 30% line. And we are really experiencing a political system failure across the board. Now, we just threw a lot at you, all right? And so I want to just take a deep breather, take a deep breath, all right? Because we are going to get into some optimism. Now that we understand what we're up against, and yes, it is scary, we can talk about how to solve it, right? And that's what Represent Us is all about. We are optimistic. We've got a ton of hope. And even in the face of these really scary developments, we are confident that we can turn it around, because time and time again throughout American history, Americans have been able to accomplish great things by coming together, thinking strategically, and getting really pragmatic about how to solve things. And so where did we start, right? When we think about these solutions, how do we tackle all these problems at once? Well, we knew that we couldn't do it alone. So we brought together some of the brightest minds from across the political spectrum: conservatives, progressives, independents, third-party folks, all together in the same room. These were constitutional scholars, just like our guy Lessig, who is animated on your screen. We had grassroots activists and reformed corporate lobbyists as well. So the people who are former bad guys, to craft model legislation that we can use as a guidepost for what new laws we should support. And that became the American Anti-Corruption Act. It is a living, breathing policy platform that RepresentUs members can use to guide their local and state level advocacy efforts and work as a template for their new tough laws. It focuses on undoing the ring of corrupt influences on our elected officials and reinstating the people's voice. The AACA offers a comprehensive list of viable policy options, such as you see on your screen here. You got ranked choice voting, AVR, ending gerrymandering with independent redistricting commissions. So we brought all these policies, we researched them, brought them to the table, and we wanted to spark a movement around passing them as a cohesive unit, right? If you want to learn more about this specific piece of legislation, you can go to anticorruptionact.org and check out the full list of provisions there. Now, you may ask yourself, how do Americans feel about this act? We conducted a national poll and found overwhelming support, 87%, from both sides of the aisle for these reforms. 91% of Democrats, 87% of independents, and 83% of conservatives. Right, and so let's do a little recap there. American Anti-Corruption Act, stopping political bribery, ending secret money, and fixing our broken elections. Now, I want to do something a little bit new. This is the first time we're going to try this out, folks. So let's see how this works, all right? And we can get to some Q&A here too before we go into the theory of change. We're going to open up a little poll, and I'm really interested to see what people have to say here. The question is going to be, what are you most passionate about out of all of these issues, right? You're going to get a multiple choice question that pops up on your screen. So please select the one that you are most passionate about working on. The three options are going to be voting, RCV, AVR, right? That's kind of the local election administration and protection. We have gerrymandering and money in politics. Those are the three options: voting, gerrymandering, or money in politics. Let's launch this poll and see what we have to say. Okay, the poll is launched. It should be up on your screen, and we already have votes coming in. All right. Well, how about, we're gonna try to get a voter turnout up above 75%. Hopefully, we're at 66% already. 2/3 of everyone has voted. All right, we're above 75%. Okay, good voter turnout, folks. I love it. Okay, we're at 86% voter turnout now. This is very interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna end the poll in 5 seconds. Last call for votes. 3, 2, 1. All right, we got to 88% of the population, which are our attendees, of course, participating in the poll. That was awesome. Okay, and let's share these results. Okay, you should have that up on your screen. If someone could just confirm that they could see these results in the chat. Yes, okay, great. Thank you so much, Stephen. All right, so this is what people said, and this is really interesting on a number of levels here, folks, right? Gerrymandering, it makes sense, right? Actually, not a lot of people are thinking about gerrymandering right now, because for those that don't know, gerrymandering work really happens around the change of the decades. So, around 2010, 2020, and the next gerrymandering fight is really coming up in 2030, because districts are drawn with the census, right? And the census comes around every so often. Now, I love it. We got 24% of folks saying voting. This is a really important issue right now, folks, right? Our elections are under attack in many different areas around the United States. And so we've got a lot of ranked choice voting campaigns to work on this year too. So voting is going to be really important, but not surprisingly, money in politics is the answer, right? It is the 63% answer that most people gave. That is not surprising, right? A lot of folks come into this movement wanting to work on that in particular. Now, it's important to keep in mind that chipping away at some of these other policies, solving gerrymandering, passing ranked choice voting, passing AVR, protecting our local elections, hopefully will help us eventually create the environment that we can work on more campaign finance regulations and money in politics. But just keep in mind that these are all connected, right? So it's interesting to see what people are most passionate about. But at RepresentUs, we really do see them to be as all of the part of the same issue, right? Which is the broken representation, the broken political system. All right, great comments coming into the chat. So I recommend going in there and checking those out. Quick Q&A here. Represent Us has been around for the last 8 years. What kind of palpable change has taken place at Represent Us initiative over that time? Yes, I love it. So Jeff, we're going to have a map in just a second that basically unveils all of the victories that we've had through the movement. Not only that, but we also have a 10-year report that you can check out as well later on the call, that you can actually, there's an interactive map. And so you can click through and find more about those victories on the map. So that is coming up really, really soon. Just seeing a quick question. We are not hiring at the moment, Samuel, but definitely look out because we will have positions up at some point. Ryan asked, would it be possible to get links to the studies and stats used in the presentation? This would be excellent evidence to use to spread the word. Absolutely, yes. So a lot of those studies and stats are on the Represent Us website under the problem and solution tabs. So you can go to just http:// I'll also go to the anticorruptionact.org. You'll find more information there too. But represent.us should get you, and you should be able to find a lot of great resources there, Ryan. AVR is automatic voter registration, and it's a great policy that is a part of the AACA. Yes, I would say, Justin is asking, does money in politics include politicians trading stocks? 100%, and there's actually an active initiative to ban stock trading on the federal level. So yes, absolutely. That is 100% in the bucket of money in politics, right? We're talking campaign finance, dark money, the revolving door, that type of thing. Okay, last question before we move on. How can those with little resources contribute in a more substantial way to get this movement heard more on all platforms? Well, great question. We're going to get into that. We just covered the solution, right? We need to talk about the theory of change, right? Which is actually how we implement this stuff and how you can get involved, right? That's still what's coming up on this call. So C Burton 0001, if you still have that question at the end of the call, let me know and we can revisit it. Okay, fantastic questions. Let's dig right back into the presentation and keep this moving. All righty. Okay, so folks, we know what is wrong. We know what will fix it. But how do we get there, right? We can see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? We just need to draw the path towards it. The first thing to understand and accept, and this is a hard one, is that the system will not fix itself. Congress has an entrenched interest in keeping our system rigged, and asking them to fix it is like asking the fox to put a lock on the henhouse. That doesn't mean we can't fix it. It just means Congress won't do it. So our solution depends on going around Congress and bringing together everyday Americans like you and me to take action. We looked at movements throughout US history and successful strategies that have moved America forward. We discovered that when movements pass laws at the local level first, they can break through and win federal victories. According to a Bloomberg News study, a state-by-state strategy over time ultimately leads to federal victory. And we have seen that with the women's suffrage movement all the way back at the early 20th century. We've seen that in the same-sex movement most recently, and even the interracial marriage movement. The Second Amendment movement is also one that is more on the right side of things, right? But that we could have created a very similar graph for that as well. State by state, eventually leading to federal change. Now, that grassroots campaign reaching maturity, we want to be the next one. We want to be the campaign to hit that blue line, which is the critical mass where we pass all of these laws across the United States. It's our job to get the pro-democracy, anti-corruption movement to that point. That is our work, which means passing these laws state by state. That is what we're all about. Now, we need to come across party lines, right? We know this from experience, right? That blue circle oftentimes is the main people talking about these issues, right? That 25% of progressives, right? That's not working. They're not being heard. They're not connecting. right? We need a nonpartisan movement in order to bring all groups of Americans together, whether you're conservative, independent, or progressive, all in the same room, all on the same team, working to fight corruption and protect our democratic republic. Now, remember, right, any one political group only occupies that fraction, right? So we need to build a big tent. That doesn't mean leaving your opinions at the door, but it does mean making an effort to make Represent Us as inclusive as possible, creating a welcoming space for Americans across the political spectrum. This may look like avoiding bringing up divisive partisan field issues, or it can look like going out of your way to connect with someone you may otherwise have avoided. This is one of my favorite parts about Represent Us, right? In this world of today, we live in silos. We live in political bubbles. Represent Us is about breaking through those and creating a new political culture, right? It's not red team or blue team anymore. It's the red, white, and blue team coming together to protect each other, to fight for each other, and to focus on the things that we agree on, because we actually do agree on a lot. 95% of the people living in this country believe in the Constitution, right? We need to get back to the basics and come together as a country. All right, now studies show that if you activate 3.5% of the population, that is one of the main pieces of creating that critical mass moment where real change can be ushered in. Through public awareness and grassroots infrastructure building, we're building an undeniable force by educating and activating 3.5% of the population. That means building grassroots support at the local and national level and connecting those volunteers with active campaigns. So folks, right, these are two big cultural pieces of what Represent Us is all about, right? We're about bringing all folks from the political spectrum into the movement. And we're about reaching a massive amount of people. We need eyeballs. We need to do this on a mass scale if we're going to achieve the type of change that we need to. Okay, so let's recap. Theory of change, right? We need to bring conservatives, progressives, independents together. We have to pass anti-corruption laws at the state and local level. And we need to build a national movement where we're all supporting each other and where the energy of the country can really be used to power local and state campaigns leading up to that federal victory. So let's do another poll. I love these polls because it's a great opportunity for you to engage. And I just think it's really interesting to see where everyone's at on this call and just learn a little bit more about, our other supporters. Yes, John, right? I love that mindset. Red, white, and blue team, 100%. Okay, so let's start the second poll. Agreed. Ben is talking about the Citizens Climate Lobby, 100%. Please do share it with them if you can. Okay. Now this is another question for y'all, just to gauge where y'all at and what you're most excited about. So the question is, what are you most excited to do? And there's multiple choice. It's going to force you to pick one over the other, right? Work with it could be that you're excited to do all three of these things, right? And you will be doing all three of these things likely, maybe more time on one or the other, but these are really core to who we are. But what are you most excited to do? The three options: work with Americans outside of your political bubble. That's my favorite. Not to influence anyone, not to lobby the voting population. Support campaigns all over the US from the comfort of your own home, and build/support local campaigns in your own backyard. So one more time, the options are: work with Americans across the political spectrum outside of your political bubble, support campaigns all over the US from the comfort of your own home. That's like digital actions, right? Online stuff. Or build and support local campaigns in your own backyard. Let's launch this poll. It should be up on your screens and the votes can come in. Let's try to get up to 88% again, voter turnout on this one. All right, the votes are coming in. We're at 64% already. Thank you so much for participating, everyone. I hope this is fun. All right, really interesting results. Okay, we're at 82%. Last call. Let's get up to 88. Oh no, I'm so sorry. Keenan cannot see the poll. which is a bummer, but other people for sure can because they're voting in it. But apology, that's likely a tech issue. I'm so sorry about that, Keenan. Okay, we're at 86%, which I think is good statistical significance here. Okay, yeah, you saw the others. Yeah, that's really weird, Keenan. I'm not sure why that's happening. I apologize. Okay, we're gonna end this poll and we're gonna share the results. So there we go. Really interesting results here. 55% of participants are excited to build and support local campaigns. Well, that is great, right? That is a huge piece of the puzzle here. Now, everyone is going to have different things to do and different things to work on, depending on what state you're in, right? If you're in Wisconsin, there are very specific things that you'll want to be doing over the next 2 months to protect democracy and to protect election administrators. If you're in Oregon, there's a massive ranked choice voting campaign in Portland. If you're in Nevada, there's a massive ranked choice voting campaign in Nevada that you're going to want to connect with and get to work on right away. Or maybe you're in a place that hasn't had much activity on this type of stuff, like let's say Jackson, Mississippi. Right? If you're in Jackson, Mississippi, you're going to be starting from scratch, and there's going to be a whole other kind of work, kind of to-do list for you to tackle. Now, I definitely want to encourage everyone to support all of these campaigns, no matter where you are in the country. You can support a campaign like Nevada and Oregon and Portland from the comfort of your own home by joining phone banks and letter to the editor trainings and text banks and such like that. So those are really easy and impactful actions that everyone can take. So I encourage everyone to look into those. All right, let's keep this rolling here, and we'll stop sharing that poll. Thanks so much for participating, everyone. Okay, and then let's dig into the last section of this call, which is all about how you can get involved. All right. Okay, so folks, before we get into what each of us can do, I wanted to share this map because this is the good news, right? We are actually already on our way to creating that momentum. Right? And we've already passed 160 anti-corruption acts, actually 161 anti-corruption act policies and resolutions in cities and states across the country. Now, not all of these are the full package. A lot of them are just one piece of the package, like an anti-gerrymandering win or a ranked choice voting win. You can get a nice key on your right-hand side so that you can see all of the different colors and what they represent. But the great news is that we've already started, and actually we've been working for about 10 years already, organizing across the United States. And so this is a part of our 10-year report, and you'll be actually able to get to this map through a link in a second here, and you'll be able to click through to actually learn more about what these victories were. So, right, the mission is to get more colors on this map. We want all 50 states to have colors. We want everyone to be making progress towards hitting that critical mass. Okay, so where do we begin? How do we start working on those colors, right? How do we start working on those policies and campaigns? First, you can join the Action Brigade. And so this is really where those online actions come into play. It's a national team of volunteers. We got folks from all over the country working together online to win the most urgent anti-corruption campaigns wherever they are. By focusing the power of the entire movement on the front lines of this fight, we can stand up to special interests and beat corruption. You'll be a part of a national network powering campaign victories across America. You'll get weekly updates via email and text, or we can even give you calls if you'd like. You'll be calling voters, you'll be joining text banks, letter to the editor drives, and from anti-gerrymandering to protecting election administrators, your help will build a government that works for you and your family, not just a handful of billionaires and special interests. The Action Brigade, folks, this is really important. And so that's kind of our superpower, right? Is that we have a culture here of supporting each other, even if you're not in my state, right? I'm in New York City. But I want to support that campaign in Nevada because I understand that if we win in Nevada, that's going to help everyone else in all over the United States, right? I want to help that campaign in Portland, Oregon, right? That is our culture, right? And that's why our online actions are so cool because it gives you the opportunity to power those campaigns so that the people on the ground can do other things. They don't have to worry about phone banking because our team from, with members in Minnesota and Florida and Vermont came together to help them out. All right, so this is the next Action Brigade event is actually coming right up. So this is not a phone bank. This is a letter to the editor initiative. And this is a national call. So this is really going to apply to all 50 states. And we're kicking off a drive to talk about attacks on pro-voter laws. They are basically running wild across the country trying to pass laws that hurt voters and that make it harder for us to actually have an influence on our government, right? You think things are bad now, they could get worse, right? And we've got to hold what we have together in the meantime while we can make progress and pass new great laws. So this is a really, really important initiative that I encourage everyone to join and be a part of. I'm actually going to quickly come out of the slideshow so that I can share this link in the chat, because I think it's just so important that everyone gets it. Okay, so popping this into the Zoom chat for y'all to have. And I'm going to preemptively pop in another link here that we'll address in just a second here, just so that we can keep flowing. Okay, so here are our CTAs. And actually, you know what? I might as well just plop in all the links while I'm at it. And then we can just flow and explain what each of these are. So here is, we've got the letter writing training. We have got the donation page, and we've got the 10-year report all there for you. All right, and yes, go Maine. Someone in the chat's very excited about all that color on Maine. I agree, that is very exciting. Maine has been one of the leaders in the country when it comes to democracy reform, and it's not surprising, right? There's a lot of independents in Maine, right? There's a lot of folks who are tired and not represented by the two-party system. So it makes sense that they have a lot of incentive to pass these type of laws. Okay, so we're writing letters to the editor. For those that don't know, a letter to the editor is actually pretty easy to write. It's only 250 words or so. And this is a really, really great opportunity to make a massive, massive impact. We just had a volunteer that was published in the Sacramento Bee, which is one of the biggest newspapers in Northern California, talking about election protection and protecting election volunteers and workers who are getting death threats from extremists. And we had someone get published in the Sacramento Bee, which has a readership of over 500,000 people and an online reach of over 1 million. So this is a massive opportunity to make an impact in your local area, bringing a national narrative to the folks in your own backyard. Okay, so online actions, we got that, check. Now we're also mobilizing in all 50 states with periodic national days of action or national initiatives. We've got an amazing, we're supporting an amazing volunteer in Vermont who's walking across the country from Southern California all the way to DC to raise awareness about democracy. If anyone's interested in hearing more about that, maybe we can check out his website after this call. So we do things like that. We support anti-corruption campaigns wherever they pop up, like all the ones that you saw on this map, right? These are not just RepresentUs doing all this work, right? These are local folks driving the campaign. We'll oftentimes work with them and partner. So we can either connect you with those local leaders, or if there's nothing going on, we can give you some tips on where to get started. Now, we're not building structured chapters at the moment at will across the United States. We're being very strategic about where we're making investments, of course, because like I said, that's one of our main cultural pins, is we're very pragmatic and we do not want to waste resources. And so we aren't just creating chapters all over the place, right? We're being really targeted there, but there's still local work that you can do that doesn't necessarily mean starting a chapter. It could mean getting involved in an ongoing initiative and bringing our movement to that table. It could mean joining another group. Or it could just mean doing some little things here or there to help the movement and help get things started in your state. All right, now, if the first two options weren't for you, if you're not thinking like I want to volunteer in person or I want to volunteer online, you can also become a member of the Commonwealth, a dedicated community of patriots making a gift month after month until the day we have a government of, by, and for the people. And actually, I recommend considering this, even if you're going to volunteer, because this is a really, really important piece here. Oh, oops, went the wrong way there. There we go. Right, every Commonwealth contribution directly supports the fight to fix our broken political system, as 100% of your donations go directly to help win campaigns, not overhead or organizational expenses. Commonwealth donors, right, allow us to rush funds where they're needed most, when they're needed most. They also help us plan ahead smartly so we can go big on winning political strategies, right? The link is in the chat. So go ahead and check there, and please support us by becoming a member of the Commonwealth. Now, I also know that we may have, and we likely have, some folks that are already a part of this amazing team. And I just want to shout you out and give you a big thank you. Thank you so much for your support and dedication to this movement. None of what we do, right? None of these wins are possible without it, right? Unfortunately, everything costs money in this world of ours, right? And we've got to have the funds to compete, right? Commonwealth helps us do it, and you can be a part of that. Thank you so much. All right, the last thing I want to plug here is our 10-year report. This is a really, really cool website, y'all, that basically covers all of the progress we've made over the last 10 years. Here are just a few of the most exciting statistics that have come to the surface here over the last 10 years. There is so much more to see on this map. And so if we can just open it up really quickly just so that I can show you, right? We've got a video down here, which is awesome. As we scroll, you get different pieces of the Represent Us puzzle. Here's that interactive map that I was mentioning, right? And so say, hey, we want to learn about what happened in Virginia. Let's click on Virginia. Read more about this. Okay, interesting. Let's see what happened in Virginia, right? I guess we see that it looks like it's red. Yes, definitely. Should maybe have some more color in there. Okay. Sorry about this. Internet's taking a little bit long. All right. Okay. And then we see Virginia voters take on gerrymandering and win, right? So this is one of our major victories back in 2020. And honestly, there should be some more colors in here. It shouldn't just be red. There should be a yellow streak as well, because this was a massive gerrymandering win, folks, where we passed an independent redistricting commission in Virginia back in 2020. Very cool stuff. You can scroll down and get more statistics. And just learn about our work. It is an awesome place. So I really encourage you to go there after the call. All right, you're also going to get this in I believe you're going to get this in an email tomorrow. So don't worry too much about getting there tonight. We'll make sure you get the links tomorrow. Okay, we're almost wrapped up here and getting into the Q&A to have you off the call at 8 p.m. But before I do so, I'd like to introduce you to Bob. And this is how we'll wrap up. A little story time. Check out Bob here. He doesn't look like he's having a great day. And really, that's because Bob wakes up every morning to a country that doesn't value his voice. A country that only pays attention to voices with money, right? Does that sound familiar? A country that rewards divisiveness and partisanship, right? That's what seems to do well on Twitter, right? When we're fighting with each other, that's what seems to do well on TikTok when we're being, really, divisive and we're angry, we're upset, right? That's what does well, right? And it seems like the most partisan, politicians are the ones that do the best. So, all of this together, it's not really clear why Bob should be hopeful, right? And Bob could go in a number of directions here. Bob could lean into apathy, right? I'm sure we have been in this world before, or we know people who are currently politically apathetic. This is a huge problem in the United States. And it's understandable though, right? Because when there's lack of hope, it's sometimes easier to just not care, right? Just be lazy. Just, whatever happens, right? We have no chance of changing anything. I'm sure, right? These are the people that don't want to vote, right? Oh, my vote doesn't count. It doesn't matter, right? It's understandable, right? Now it's scary, but it's understandable. All right, and so we also have political extremism, right? This is the really scary path that folks can fall into. And this is what we've seen happen over the last couple of years, just thinking about the January 6th insurrection, thinking about a ton of anti-democratic activity, undermining our elections, undermining our election officials, right? Getting violent, getting militant, right? This is where folks in our country are headed in either direction. We've got to put a stop to it. Now, luckily for us, Bob learns about Represent Us. Now we got a happy ending here. And our strategy to bring all Americans together to fix our broken elections and to protect democracy and fight corruption. Bob now is inspired to act and can choose how to best support the movement. Is it through donating? Is it through volunteering? Or is it through spreading the word and helping us share all of these materials and bring more people into the movement, right? Like kind of like a recruiter or a spokesperson. Right now, the great news is that there are millions of people just like Bob in the US. Right? There are millions of ears waiting to hear our message. It's our mission to bring them into the movement, connect them to anti-corruption campaigns, to fix our democratic republic, and to make it work for all of us. Because that is the most important piece here, right? We're not just doing this because. We're doing this because we need it as human beings, as people that deserve rights and deserve to be represented. That is why this movement is so important. That is why I'm so glad that all of you have joined us today. And that is why I'm so glad that you are just beginning your journey as a part of the anti-corruption movement. So no matter what you do, it's important that you do something, because it's going to take all of us. We got to get to that 3.5%. That means engaging 10 million people. We got to do it. Our country depends on it. The future depends on it. To turn this country around, it's going to take everyone. So we need to invite your friends and family to join us, right? The more, the merrier. Thank you. And please join the online community on Slack to stay plugged in and up to date on the latest from the movement. And I will just plop this link into the chat so that you can join us. Now, when we leave, actually, you know what? I'm not going to do that, because when we leave this Zoom, we're also trying a new feature here. The Zoom chat will bring you to RepresentUs chat. So if you just click out of the Zoom, you're going to get taken right to our online community where you can create an account and become a lasting part of our community and our movement. You're also going to get this link tomorrow in a follow-up email, as all of the resources will be shared in a follow-up email tomorrow. Okay, let's go into some Q&A. Thank you so much for everyone sticking around. We've got 9 minutes until 8 p.m. to do some awesome Q&A, questions and answering. Great, I'm just going to check out the chat first to see if we have any messages there. Yeah, so John asked a great question. Ben, you folks dealing with waste and fraud and public spending and debt. We need some party to give a care, thanks, John, about corruption and public spend. Represent Us care about small fiscal stewardship. That is a little bit, I mean, I think that's absolutely connected, but that's more of like a ripple effect from all of this, right, John? We don't oftentimes our thing is dealing with the core issues, right? And so what happens when we have a corrupt government is that we spend irresponsibly, we spend corruptly, right? But by passing the ACA and by focusing in on that, we have a pretty good hunch that it's going to help solve some of the issues that you're referring to in your question. Yes, Jess, great news coming out of Wyoming. I did see that they are considering ranked choice voting. Really cool, Jess. I think that is awesome. You love to see that out of a state like Wyoming. So Rolf is asking how Citizens United can be reversed. Now, that is a tough question. And there's some groups that we're partnered with, like American Promise, who that's their main mission, is to overturn Citizens United. That is not our goal, right? That is another strategy that is valid and should be pursued, but that is not our lane, right? And it requires different strategy in order to do that, right? You can go state by state by passing anti-Citizens United resolutions, but it really requires a different type of activism that we are not necessarily invested in. Ben is asking a good question. What about approval voting? So approval voting is very similar to ranked choice voting. There's also star voting as well. We tend to prioritize ranked choice voting campaigns as they are more prolific across the US and have been proven to be more viable and actually getting passed in a significant area, like a place like New York City, where now 8 million people use ranked choice voting, or in a state like Maine, right? Approval voting is a little bit earlier in that development in terms of getting to that phase, but we still think it's a good policy. We just will tend to lean towards ranked choice voting then, if that makes sense. Okay, RepresentUs seems, we got an anonymous attendee. Let's see, asking about vote by mail. Yeah, so there's an ongoing debate about vote by mail and absentee voting. Though right now, whoever sent this in, there's no evidence that vote by mail causes inaccuracies or inaccountabilities. That actually, there's some evidence that it's actually more accountable process and that it's a more secure process. The vote by mail fault has become really politicized over the last couple of years. And back in 2016, back in 2012, and 100 years ago, it wasn't, right? Vote by mail was actually a really bipartisan issue. That Republicans and conservatives and independents, third parties and progressives all liked. And actually, in some ways, conservatives and liked it even more than progressives, because vote by mail actually helps elderly folks get to the polls easier and in bigger numbers. And that usually benefits conservatives over Democrats. So it's just kind of an interesting narrative that has taken shape over the last couple of years. But really, vote by mail is a nonpartisan policy that has a lot of security built into it. And places like Florida, which completely controlled by Republicans, passed it and love it. And President Trump actually himself used vote by mail to vote before the 2020 election. And actually, our military service members use vote by mail every time they vote in every election, right? It's actually really important to have vote by mail laws for our military service members when they're across overseas, to be able to have a say within their communities, right? Actually, it goes even back to the Civil War, right? That's actually when vote by mail started, because we had so much of the country fighting that we needed a way for those military folks to actually, vote. That was the start of vote by mail. And it has been a great policy in places like Colorado and Washington as well. And it became a necessary thing during the pandemic. Of course, that created a lot of tension, understandably so. We had to make a lot of changes very fast, and that was a precarious position. So I understand the concerns around it. But in reality, vote by mail is a very secure voting process, also called absentee voting. You might know it by that name, right? Very secure process. Some evidence that it's actually more secure by the normal system that we use. Oh, right. Okay, so C. Burton is asking, where do we find the list of bills and acts that are being pushed in Congress to voice ourselves to our reps and get them to vote for what we want? So C. Burton, we're actually recommending that you don't worry about federal Congress at all. What you want to do is focus on your state legislature and your municipal city council. You want to find out what bills are going on there, what initiatives are there. And so I'm wondering where you are located in the country. See, Burton, this would be a great case study for us just to show everyone how this works. Yes, 100% in blue state. So this, Betsy makes a great, as C. Burton is getting back to us on the state that they're in. I do want to call out Betsy's comment. Yes, blue states are really subject to a lot of these. They're actually, in some cases more subject to some of these issues, right? We're thinking about places like New York and Illinois, places where the Democratic Party really controls the state, and where there's a lot of money coming in through cities like New York City and Chicago that are flowing into the government, right? And we have awful gerrymandering happening in those states too, right? So you really, like, two of the biggest blue states are suffering from pretty much all the issues that we care about. Yes, Leah, let's get you in touch with that Texas organizer. We actually have a Texas statewide channel on our Slack platform. So by joining Slack, which is up on your screen, or just Xing out of the Zoom call when we leave, I think we will get you connected to Jenna sooner than later. Okay, so C. Burton's in Michigan. And going back to your question, right, what is happening in Michigan? We actually also have a Michigan statewide channel on Slack. So if you join Slack, I can get you connected to Hank Myers, who's working on a campaign finance and dark money initiative in the state of Michigan based out of Lansing, which is really cool. So just join our Slack platform and we'll get connected to Hank, who can be a great leader for you in state. We also have some other, there's also a ranked choice voting campaign happening in Michigan as well. So Justin, interesting question. Justin says, I run a team of door-to-door salesmen here in Colorado. Is there any funds to get materials so I can utilize these guys to spread the word? I think so. Though I would want to connect you, Justin, to the ranked choice voting folks on the ground in Colorado. Because on that type of thing, as a national organizer, I rely on my local leaders to really guide what is available and what they think is useful. And there is a really, really active ranked choice voting campaign happening in Colorado right now, in particular in Fort Collins. There is a ballot initiative, but there's also, campaigns happening in Colorado Springs and in Denver itself. So I would love to get you connected to the ranked choice voting campaign in Colorado. We've got a great statewide channel on Slack. We can connect you with Curtis. Thanks so much, Justin. Awesome, Alexis. Yeah, we've got a few Arizona campaigns going on, both ranked choice voting and I believe there's a campaign finance initiative that might be on the ballot this year in 2022. Yeah, so we're working on a flyer, y'all, and the flyer should be ready next week that will have a lot of our updated messaging and links to join us. So look out for that flyer. Join Slack, that we will post the flyer on Slack. That is exactly why joining Slack is so important, because once you're there, you'll get all these new materials that come. And so definitely keep an eye there. We're going to post it early next week. All right, folks, that is going to do it for this call. Now look out for the follow-up email. X out the Zoom window and you're going to get right to our online community. I really appreciate everyone on this call. All your participation, your great questions, the polls. I mean, this was a lot of fun and really, really exciting to meet all of you and to get started on this journey. Now is the time to do it, right? We're headed into the election. We got 2 months to go to win some campaigns in November. Let's do it. Every year we make progress. Every year you can count on some wins. Let's go. Let's do it this year too. Before we leave, if you're excited to get started on this work, throw some exclamation points into the chat to set us off with a ton of energy. Yes, Jess, let's go. I love it. All those exclamation points. John is in with us. Leia, woohoo. Big celebration in the chat. I love it. And the great thing about exclamation points is you can throw as many as you want in there. They're unlimited. There's no limit to the exclamation points. It's fantastic. Oh, we got red exclamation points. Whoa. Bryce, yes. People says, let's do this. See, Burton can't type fast enough. I love it. Yes, Justin, let's get it. Down with corruption. I agree. Come on, let's go. All right, folks, that's what I needed to power me through the next month. We will be in touch. Have a great rest of your night. We can do this, folks. Let's go. Sorry about that, folks. I guess I X'd out and did not close this meeting. So appreciate everyone who stuck around.